What's going on, everyone? Fido Mighty here, checking in. I'm sitting out in this gorgeous sunshine, something we don't see much here in Seattle. It's winter, it's cold, but I'm happy to be here. I'm in this bird sanctuary that I love. I come here as often as my schedule will allow it. It's a migratory stopover place, and I just love birding. I think it's really fun. It's a great way to experience nature, and there's a lot more out there than you think if you're in an urban environment. This quarter is super cool, taking awesome classes. I got advanced biostatistics, which is like so awesome to look at the world through the lens of math. I'm taking a class on the evolution of evolutionary mechanisms, which is so sophisticated and cool. Really love it, and it's one of the reasons why I get a little like when people get really reductionist about evolution and Darwinism to like simple statements like survival of the fittest or competition for resources. The theory of evolution is so far advanced from that. It's been going on for 200 years, and that's another conversation. But also I'm doing this honors course requirement, and I'm doing a project on how microbiomes in the canopy, intercellular spaces, and root systems of plants drive evolution. So we like to think of ourselves, animals, plants as singular organisms, but in reality they're communities of organisms, and those community interactions are actually huge drivers of evolution. So I'm really excited about that project. It's going to be awesome. Let's get down to this video. What diet do I recommend? I get this question all of the time, and I get challenged on this question all of the time. So let me just start by saying that 1, I'm not a doctor. 2, I'm not a licensed nutritionist. And even though I had 2 years of pre-med biology, I don't make dietary recommendations because I'm not a professional. When people come to me for help, I try to point them to resources that they can self-educate and experiment on their own. So let's talk about this one step further. Somebody said something like, well, if you're putting out a video saying that there's neurotoxins and high temperature or in cooked starches, then why are you recommending cooked food for everyone? All right. I am recommending cooked food for me. Why? Because I do better on it. We're going to talk about that in a second. I did that video on cooked starches for 3 reasons. 1, I have access to science other people don't. And I like to, as much as my time, my free time will allow me, to put out open source information that will help others make informed choices. And I do that as a public service. I'm not making money off this deal. This is like community service. 2, I did it in a response to information that was going around the community at that time, where there were like individuals saying like, well, coffee's got neurotoxins in it, and you shouldn't be drinking it because it's got neurotoxins. And then in the next clip, they're like eating a huge ass bowl of cornflakes, pouring sugar on top, going, carb up, mother mama. And the reality is that cornflakes and things like processed cereal are processed at super high temperatures and are one of the highest levels of acrylamides when it comes to starches. Not all starches are made the same, not all starches are produced the same, and not all starches are cooked the same. And being able to know that and how that differentiates is kind of important information for people who are eating starches. So if you haven't seen that video, I recommend to watch it because there's some good stuff in it. And the 3rd reason that I made it is because I wanted to inform my own choices as I began incorporating more foods that are cooked into my diet. So let's go back to what diet I recommend. So as we already know, I'm not a professional, nor am I a self-proclaimed guru. And that's a little bit of a jab, but for good reasons. I don't make dietary recommendations. I think it's really important for people who are not professionals to stop making recommendations and simply share what they're doing. Share what you're doing, share your results. If somebody else sees that and they feel drawn to experiment and do it, they will. You don't need to convince them of anything. And this whole idea that fruitarianism or natural hygiene is a species-specific diet, you carry the burden of proof, natural hygiene. That's what I have to say to you. I have been watching this community for 6 years now, and although that's not 20 years, that's enough time for me to see the revolving door. There is a huge number of people who come in who are very earnest about wanting to make the regimen work, who aren't like food addicts. Like I went into it, I didn't have a problem eating natural hygiene. I didn't have sneak cheats or unable to just not eat rice or anything like that. It was easy for me. I was like, yeah, this is it. I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I found it. This is it. And so the reality was that I followed it, and it really screwed up some aspects of my health. It didn't support me on a nutritional level, and I've chronicled that in my videos. If you want to see it, go back to it. I'm not going to repeat it. And this happens to a lot of people. It's not like a small percentage. It's the vast majority. It's the lion's share. And there are some people that do awesome on this, and that is great for them. I fully support. If you're feeling awesome, if you feel amazing, if your dental health is good, if your physical health is good, then have at it. That's so cool. I'm really happy for you. And maybe even almost a little bit like, oh, I wish I could do that. But the reality is when I do that, I start having issues. And I'm going to talk a little bit more. You can see the video that I just put up about the cookery bust, where I talk about this more, and this last year, what was going on with me. I'm not going to repeat it here. But, this comes back to the whole idea of dietary recommendation. I'm just reporting my results. And the fact of the matter is that natural hygiene didn't work for me, and cooked foods like a McDougall style diet is banging. I'm having such good results. Now I'm doing McDougall with a little bit more fruit, but not as much as I was. It's kind of shifting a little bit, and I'm getting really starch centered. And what's going on for me is my teeth are healing, my metabolism's healing, my muscles are getting stronger, I'm putting on mass, I have more energy, I feel more connected to the world, I feel more connected to people. And these are all positive things for me. If that's not your experience, fine. But what I really, really want to ask from the natural hygiene community and from the fruitarian and raw community is to stop putting your experience onto others. Just report your experience. If somebody like Nicholas Perry is having a hard time after earnestly putting 3 years in of eating just raw fruits and veg, then why are you pooping on his parade? Why are you telling him he's wrong? Why are you being nasty? Why are you being mean? Why are we doing that? We should be supporting each other in whatever it is. And it only makes sense from a biological perspective that not one diet is going to work for everyone who's human. And let me talk about this from a biological perspective. So humans have not had natural selection on a lot of dietary things for ages. We've managed to survive through all sorts of modifications because we're clever apes, right? And when we don't have natural selection, we don't have that selective pressure on us, what happens is we see greater variation in genetics. So things like vitamin conversion or fatty acid, long-chain fatty acid conversion, these kind of things, these can be really different in people. And this can make a huge difference with like a really restrictive diet like just fruit and greens, or even more restrictive, just sweet, juicy fruit and tender leafy greens. So for people to say that like there's just one diet and that's it, it's just this fruit and tender greens, on a biological perspective, that's way off base. And I will concur with the idea that humans are frugivores by biology. And I will also concur with that we're also starchivores. Actually, since the onset of modern Homo sapiens, we've been more starchivores than frugivores, and we have a lot of modifications in our body that show that. People make these like comparisons to chimpanzees. Our teeth enamel and our teeth are really different than our next closest kins, either chimps or bonobos. We're not set up in the same way to handle fruit in the same way that we were. We're just not. But we do have a history of frugivorism. What we don't have a history of, to our knowledge, is frugivorism and veganism at the same time. And that can really mean very different things. So there's this weird, movement to like make these claims that are not biologically backed, and then like come up with these ideas of like nature's design. Meanwhile, I'm shooting my leg with a vitamin B12 shot, and then I'm seeking this purified notion of living. Hey, do whatever you want. Do what's cool in your life. If that's your path, have at it. I fully support it. But really, like, let's stop crapping on people who don't live up to your expectations, or marginalizing them or their experiences, or putting them down for whatever reason because they're not as cool as you, or as pure as you, or as fruity as you, or like whatever. Like, come on, let's let that go. So to wrap this up, the diet that I recommend is a diet for me. I recommend myself a diet, and I don't really recommend diets for people. I recommend becoming educated, self-experimentation, doing that self-experimentation for a while, to see. You got to stick in it, got to stick with it for a while to see what happens, and then revising what's going to work for you. So I hope that answers your questions. I hope you're all well too.